I really love the Olympics. Every 4 years, the world gets to come together and celebrate the absolute limits of the human body and spirit, and despite a 1-year delay and no crowd, the Tokyo Olympics should be no exception. For the first time since 2008, baseball and softball will be played at the Olympics, and although I've never been the biggest fan of international baseball, the Olympics are so captivating I'm going to commit to watching as many of the games as I can. So let's take a look at the exciting players on the 6 teams that have qualified for the tournament, some of the storylines we'll see, and most importantly the schedule and tournament format since NBC does a terrible job of publicizing that stuff. Also, again, I don't watch a ton of international baseball, so take some of my opinions with a grain of salt. We'll analyze each team in order of how well they're expected to do, but the beauty of this format is it's heavily based on best of 1 games, so really anything can happen. Also important to note is that any player currently on an MLB team's 40-man roster is ineligible to compete, which rules out a lot of prominent players, especially for Team USA. Let's talk about the weird format first, since it kind of contextualizes the rosters. The 6 teams are divided into 2 groups of 3 for a group stage, where each team will play twice. After that, the teams are seeded into a double elimination bracket, where each group winner will get a first round bye. There are no series, it's all about best of 1 individual games, so upsets are inevitable, and I'm sure at least one of the teams I say are unlikely to medal will make the podium, and one of the favorites will disappoint. The biggest underdogs of the tournament are definitely Israel, who are made up almost entirely of Jewish Americans with dual citizenship that have chosen to represent the country. It's remarkable the team even qualified, considering the country of Israel only has 1 dedicated baseball facility, no professional league, and there are 0 Israeli players currently in the majors. They ended up winning the Europe-Africa qualifying tournament to secure their place at the Olympics, despite ranking just 26th in international rankings, far and away the lowest of any team in the Olympics. In terms of notable names, the only established players on the team are retired or essentially retired. Danny Valencia at first and Ryan Lavarnway at catcher play prominent roles on the team, both of whom have been somewhat productive in the majors at some point. The team's biggest draw is unquestionably Ian Kinsler at second base, who went on a trip to Israel after his retirement in 2019 that reinvigorated his love for both the country and baseball. The rest of the starting lineup is composed of a handful of career minor leaguers like Ty Kelly and Blake Galen, who should contribute offensively, and also this guy who I might be related to, which is kinda cool. Considering the team's best hitter will probably be Ryan Lavarnway, the offense is hardly a strong point for the team, but that's okay. In the best of 1 tournament format, where there are usually at least 1 day between games, having a duo or trio of good starters is probably the easiest way to bring home gold. Unfortunately, Israel's pitching staff is filled with a similar mix of career minor leaguers or indie ball pitchers that probably won't be able to deal with the tournament's more stacked lineups. Their ace in the qualifying tournament was former White Sox and A's farmhand Joey Wagman, who threw a complete game shutout against Spain to help the Israelis qualify, but that tournament took place in September 2019, so other career 4A players like John Moscott or Josh Zide will also play a part. In terms of human interest stories, keep an eye out for 42-year-old pitcher Shlomo Lipitz, one of the few Israeli-born players on the team who currently works as a music booker in New York City. Overall, Israel is far from a free win, but on paper they'll be underdogs in every game they play. They did make a couple upsets to qualify, and they were able to make a Cinderella run in the 2017 World Baseball Classic with upset wins against South Korea, Taiwan, and the Netherlands, so don't count them out in any individual game, even if they are the least likely team to medal. Their group consists of themselves, South Korea, and the US, and they'll open play on Thursday against the Koreans. Next in my somewhat uninformed rankings will be Team Mexico, who surprisingly are appearing in the Olympics for the first time ever. They have an interesting mix of former major leaguers and some of the stars of the Mexican Professional League that will be dark horses but should be capable of making some noise. They qualified for the Olympics by upsetting Team USA in a qualifying tournament, so they're definitely a real threat. Their most notable offensive piece is definitely 5-time All-Star Adrian Gonzalez, who retired in 2018 but returned to the Mexican League this year where he's hitting for a 940 OPS, showing he's still very dangerous on offense. Former Nat Danny Espinosa will likely be playing shortstop, another player who's playing in Mexico for the first time this year and has a 900 OPS. Infielder Brandon Laird played some in MLB, but notably has posted an 800 OPS in Japan's NPB over the last 7 years. Efren Navarro and Ramiro Pena are another pair of players who had a cup of coffee in the majors and are hovering around a 900 OPS in Mexico. Finally, infielder Isaac Rodriguez has been one of the best players in the Mexican League this season, with a near 1,000 OPS and good defense at short or second. The pitching staff has fewer established names, but is headlined by the ageless Oliver Perez in the bullpen, who was pitching effectively in the majors earlier this season. He'll form a solid relief duo with Fernando Salas, who was a successful reliever in the majors from 2010 to 2018, and has yet to give up a single earned run in 20 innings in Mexico this year. Perhaps most importantly, Hector Velasquez and Sammy Solis have had effective seasons as relievers in the majors relatively recently, but both tested positive for COVID-19, sending the entire team into quarantine and potentially removing 2 of their best pitchers from the group stage. The starting pitching situation is a little bit more uncertain, with Teddy Stankovic and Juan Oramas likely to get starts, both of them having started in AAA in previous seasons. Overall, the team definitely has better offensive star power and depth than Israel, but with the possible COVID outbreak, lacks the pitching depth to really go toe-to-toe in Group A with the DR or Japan. Look out for their regional rivalry debut game against the Dominican Republic on Friday. Coming in next is baseball powerhouse the Dominican Republic, the team hurt second most by MLB's 40-man roster restriction. They're another team like Mexico with a mix of former major leaguers, some prospects, and some foreign league stars, but overall the Dominicans have superior depth to the Mexican squad. The DR is home to more MLB players than any country except America and won the 2013 World Baseball Classic, so definitely one of the forces of international baseball, but again, most of their best players are currently in the majors, making them ineligible for the tournament. They had to make it through the most cutthroat qualifying phase against Venezuela and the Netherlands just to qualify, after losing to the US and Mexico in earlier tournaments, so the team is definitely battle-tested and proven. Headlining their offense is outfielder turned relief pitcher turned first baseman Jose Bautista, who's 40 years old and hasn't played in a league since 2018, but definitely still has pop in his bat. Former big league infielder Juan Francisco will be playing third, and Eric Mejia, who played a bit for the Royals in 2019 and 2020, should get some time at short. The outfield is just as intriguing though, with MLB veterans Emilio Bonifacio and Melky Cabrera likely to start in the corners. Cabrera especially will be leaned on as a middle-of-the-order bat. Most exciting, Mariners farmhand and MLB top 5 prospect Julio Rodriguez will play center field in what could be a huge coming out party to wider baseball audiences. If he has a big tournament, the DR could be a dark horse to knock off some of the top teams. Red Sox minor leaguer Johan Mieses, who's tearing up AAA right now, will also see some time in the outfield. On the pitching side, there are fewer standouts, but MLB veteran relievers like Jumbo Diaz, Dario Alvarez, and John Martinez should anchor a solid bullpen. On the starting side, Angel Sanchez and Christopher Cristostomo, who have been decent starters in Korea and Japan for the last several seasons, should throw some bulk innings, along with 43-year-old Cuban defector Raul Valdez. Overall, the Dominicans have a high offensive ceiling, but like the teams before them, lack the high-end starting pitching to play high-stakes games against the best teams in the tournament. Let's start the medal favorites by talking about Team USA, who are pulling several players from the MPB and KBO to fill their roster, in addition to some exciting MLB prospects. All told, 14 out of the 26 players on the team have MLB experience, but once again none are currently on a 40-man roster. The US actually had to play through the Americas qualifier just to make it to the Olympics after losing to Mexico in 2019, so they have played at least a handful of games together. They have plenty of exciting former major leaguers on the team, but surprisingly most are in the pitching staff. Todd Frazier is the most recognizable player on the offensive side and should be one of the team's middle-of-the-order bats. Outfielder Tyler Austin played in 4 MLB seasons to middling success before going to Japan last year where he's been excellent, posting a 1,000 OPS and 200 plus at-bats this season, so he'll be leaned on as a key offensive piece. Bubba Starling was ineffective in 2 seasons for the Royals, but he's slugging .550 for AAA Omaha this year and should play some good outfield defense. Patrick Kivlahan is another solid bat that has a 900 OPS for the Padres AAA affiliate in 2021. Red Sox top prospect Tristan Casas is ranked 24th overall by Fangraphs, and while he hasn't been great so far in AAA this year, he should bring some power to first base for the team. Nick Allen is a mid-level prospect in the A's system that has a 130 WRC plus in AA this year, and should play some solid defense at short. Finally, in a remarkable story, Eddie Alvarez won an Olympic medal speed skating at the Sochi Winter Olympics, but then signed with the Marlins where he got a cup of coffee in the majors last year. He's on the Olympic baseball team this year, and while his bat isn't great, he should lock down a middle infield position with solid defense. While the offense doesn't have a ton of standouts, the pitching should be able to hold its own against the tournament favorites. Edwin Jackson provides a veteran presence, as does a 37-year-old Scott Kazmir. Most exciting, though, are top 100 prospects Shane Boz from the Rays system and Simeon Woods Richardson in the Blue Jays system. Boz is ranked in the top 70 by most prospect rankings and has been carving up the minors with a 2.28 ERA between AA and AAA, with career best strikeout numbers so far in 2021. Woods Richardson is a top 50 prospect who hasn't impressed quite as much in the minors, but has some great stuff that could be a difference maker out of the pen or as a starter. Nico Martinez is another name that could start finding relative success in Japan in recent years. All-star David Robertson will come out of the pen with big expectations, while some other MLB veterans like Brandon Dixon and Scott McGough, who's contesting for the MPB league lead in saves, round out the bullpen. Unfortunately for the US, some other top prospects like Matthew Liberatore, Jarren Duran, and Luke Williams were expected to play, but concern over potential big league call-ups led to their removal from the roster. All things considered, the Americans should make the podium, and with an upset or two could contest for a gold medal. Their group's match against South Korea on Saturday should be a good tell on the team's fortunes, but you can catch their first game against Israel, one they should win handily the day before that. Neck and neck with the US, but overall a relatively unknown quantity, is Team South Korea, who've assembled what's essentially a Korean baseball organization dream team, winning the 2008 Beijing baseball tournament behind ace pitching from one Hyunjin Ryu. The KBO takes a league-wide intermission for the Olympics to let their stars play, and is generally regarded to be between AA and AAA in competition level, but some of the league stars are able to come to America and be effective players in the majors. Hyun-Soo Kim had a successful season with the Orioles in 2016 and should add a solid bat to their outfield. 21-year-old outfielder Baek Ho-gung is on track for a historic year in the KBO with a 185 WRC+ and near 400 batting average. Jung-Hoo Lee is a speedy 22-year-old outfielder that currently has a 154 WRC+, and has a potential 70 grade hit tool if he were to make the jump to the majors, which is not out of the question in the near future. Veteran catcher Yuji Yang might be the best hitting backstop in the tournament, leading the KBO in OPS this season. Korea has constructed the rest of their position player roster largely around speed and defense, so look to them to steal bases and play some small ball, which should be a nice departure from MLB. The pitching staff is just as competitive, with several young but exciting pitchers you might see in the majors soon. Tai-In Won and Won Jun Choi will be a formidable duo at the top of their rotation, with both posting ERAs in the mid-twos in the hitter-friendly KBO this season. The bullpen may be even more stacked, with fireballers Song Woo Cho and Woo Suk Go, both of whom can touch 100 with their fastballs and are perennially among the league leader in saves. Both could be posted to MLB soon, so keep an eye out for impressive performances from them. Overall, the Koreans are a bit of a wild card. It's possible they could flame out and be upset by a team like the DR or Mexico, but they can also definitely challenge Japan at the top of the table. I think their offense is just a little more exciting than the Americans, so I've given them the slight edge, but the two teams are even for all intents and purposes. They'll at least be fun to watch, so tune into their opening match against Israel, and especially their match against the US, which should be the most exciting game in the group stage. Finally, we have the consensus tournament favorites, the host nation Japan. As the host country, they're the only team that didn't have to qualify for the Olympics, but they likely would have rolled through the qualifiers anyway. Japan, similar to Korea, are drawing their roster from their national pro league, the NPB, and the league has gone on hiatus to let the country's brightest stars play on the international stage. The NPB is generally regarded to be between AAA and MLB in quality of play, and I definitely don't have to tell you that Japanese imports are capable of stardom in America. On the offensive end, outfielder Yuki Yanagida headlines for Japan. Yanagida is a 7-time All-Star and 2-time NPB MVP who hits for both average and power and would have been the most touted position player to come to America since Ichiro if his team had agreed to post him. While he's 32, so his best years may be past him, he had a 1071 OPS and an MVP award last year and a 942 OPS this year while playing a solid center field. Masataka Yoshida is another outfielder who's contested for batting titles each of the last 5 years with big-time doubles power. 21-year-old star first baseman Munataka Murakami is more or less Japan's Joey Gallo, so look for some moonshots from him. Outfielder Seiya Suzuki provides another reliable bat that's posted a 900 or higher OPS for the Hiroshima Carp every year since 2016. The offense is probably the best in the tournament, but in terms of pitching, Japan absolutely blows everybody else out of the water. They have 5 starters on the roster that realistically would be the ace on any other national team, one of whom is familiar face Masahiro Tanaka, who's been solid since making the move back to Japan this season. Surprisingly though, an aging Tanaka will probably not be pitching leverage innings. Yudai Ono is a crafty lefty and the reigning Sawamura Award winner, Japan's Cy Young Award. Tomoyuki Sugano, who was set to be posted this past offseason but elected to return to Japan, is also on the team, and he won the Sawamura Award in 2017 and 2018. The trio of Sugano, Ono, and Tanaka provide a strong veteran presence in the rotation, but the most exciting pitcher on the roster may be 22-year-old phenom Yoshinobu Yamamoto, who's already made 3 NPB All-Star teams and won an ERA title. He projects to be a possible frontline starter in the majors, topping out at 97 on his fastball with a backbreaking splitter, making MLB scouts chomp at the bit for a possible posting in a few years. Koyo Aoyagi is also having a breakout year with a 1.79 ERA, so he could see some important innings down the stretch. Just for good measure, Ryoji Kuribayashi and Kaima Taira are leading the NPB in saves with sub-1 ERAs and will be coming out of the bullpen. This pitching staff without question makes this Japan's tournament to lose, and it doesn't hurt that they have home field advantage at Yokohama Stadium, even if fans won't be allowed. As I said earlier, the best way to win this BO1 format is to have a couple of dominant starters, but Japan has 5. Well, once again, anything can happen in any individual game, and I could see the US or Korea or even the DR make an upset in a potential gold medal game. Anything less than first will be a disappointment for the host nation. Even without fans, the Olympics are always incredible, and if you remember the 2017 World Baseball Classic, international baseball can be some of the most fun you can have watching sports. Every team is an underdog to Japan, but if you're an American or a fan of any of the other teams, rooting for underdog stories is always more fun. So can Israel shock the world? Can the Mexicans or Dominicans prove they're still international powerhouses? Can the Americans bring baseball home with an interesting mix of ragtag veterans and budding prospects? Can Korea show the KBO as an untapped hotbed for international stars? Or will Japan leverage their lights-out pitching to just run roughshod over the entire competition? I'm looking forward to finding out, and I suggest you give it a try too. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Like and subscribe and all that jazz, and given I haven't uploaded an actual video in like 2 months, I guess I owe you guys kind of an explanation. I have a job now, which makes it harder to, make videos. For the first several months I was doing the channel, making videos was pretty much my job, but now that I have an actual job, I kind of can't do that anymore. So my job's ending, at the end of the summer, but then I'm going back to school for, a couple semesters. So I'll try to upload more often, but no guarantees, unfortunately. I do still really enjoy making videos for you guys, though, so hope you guys stick around and maybe sub to the channel if you want to. I appreciate you guys, and I'll see you guys next time.